Hello everyone and welcome to another Third Age Reforged. My name is CannonFodder and it's been a little bit of a while since I've last done a video. I've had a little bit of a hiatus for a bit, mainly just because of work and time and otherwise. But I'm back here for a video. This is actually recorded from some time ago. It was part of a map test for Sin of the Dark Cloud, and this is a 4v4. It's going to be, I think, mainly good humans versus bad humans, and me being me, I'm going to be on the evil side. So there's quite a few of us here. I'm going to do some very quick overview of the army comps. This is quite a good battle, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. It's quite an isolated one, even though it's due to its size, and I think it's exciting, and there's some particular tactics. Now, just so people know, there are, what you may see on the mini-map in the top corner here, there's sort of two fort-like structures. There's one here on our side, and then if I quickly zoom over, there's going to be another one on this other side. Now, originally, we were meant to place 3 units of our army into that location. You can see that my allies have gone and posted a number of troops up here. Now, I was a complete divvy when we were doing this. So when Sin told us we needed to go to the fort with some units, I was like, oh, there's the fort. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, fine. So I'll be sending troops up this hill. They don't actually get engaged, so it's okay, but because they're meant to be sort of defending the city, and the basic idea is you lose the city, you lose the game. But yeah, so if you notice my troops just standing there like lemons, that's the reason why. Anyway, let's get over the army comps and let's see how it goes. Obviously, hello everybody, and I'm hoping that you're well. So I'm playing Harad because why not? Of course I am. I love Harad. I think they're a fantastic faction. I've got some Southern Warband. I've got some Muhad Beast Hunters as my Javies. I've got a few Javies really in this lineup. I've got some dismounted Serpent Guards. I'll get a little bit of close-ups for people, although at this point you've probably seen what they look like. Although the Muhad guys are always fantastic to look at. I really think that these guys look absolutely amazing. Yep, we've got the Serpent Guard. Again, there's a lot of armies, so I won't go through everything in close-ups. I've got some pikemen. I've got some bodyguards, because of course I do. I do have some spearmen as well that are hidden. Surprisingly, a large number of the forces of Harad can hide. More pikemen, more warband. So basically, my force, just so you guys realize, is a lot of trash and then some very, very powerful units. Oh, and that's my ally. So yeah, so there's not much really that you can see right now. They'll be moving around shortly. I have some camels as well. I think they're also hidden. So we'll get onto those as they start moving around. So my first ally here is Lister. He's actually a tournament victor of a recent Reforged tournament. So congratulations to him. He's got Canned here. He's got some halberds and some footmen who are correctly lining up to head in the right direction, unlike my guys. He has the first of a couple of bridges, although the bridges are a bit of a death trap. You'll see that we don't really use them. He's got some marauders. He's got some chief retainers there. Actually, let's go in for these guys. Look at these guys, absolute beasts. What else have we got? We've got some more halberds. A lot of halberds in the forces. Got some 4 footmen. And then he's also got some bowmen and missile infantry. I do not have that much in the way of archers. I have a couple, I think, of... I might have some shadow archers. We'll pick them out as the time comes. He's got some horse archers as well, with some wind blades. He's got some vanguard. And he's got some Brotherhood of the Lands. We'll just go in and have a look at those guys, because I do think that the Brotherhood looks pretty sweet as well. They've got these new sort of helmets. Although, admittedly, I do see a little bit of sort of NFL helmets in them when I look at them. No situation with the chieftains. They look absolutely amazing. I like the mustaches as well. I mean, you know you're in trouble when a guy with a massive metal mustache comes for you. Just going along then, so my next ally here, we've got Dreezy, who is one of the developers. He has Run, so he's got a lot of golden boys. He's got some clansmen. He's got the Luke Sion Rim. He does have some hunters for his missile units. He's got some spearmen. He's backed up with some flag rim. He's got some camels chosen. We'll just go in and have a look at those boys. There they are with their red sashes. He's also got some Gamp rim. And he's got some more missile troops. He does have some cavalry. I think they're behind the fort here, I think. No, he just has these units as well, which are heading to the fort. Again, my one aren't heading in the right direction. So he's got some a good mix there. He's got some spearmen with some missile units, and he's got some Javies there. On the other side, then, the final side of my ally of Sin, he's playing Umbar, which I believe is his favourite faction. He's got some Sentinels that are going to be making their way to the main fortress. There you go. So I told you he had a few more troops here. I'm pretty sure he's got cavalry as well. He's got... Oh, if you've ever seen these videos, I'm really terrible at these. So, Abanazim Narub Arib for his missile troops. He's got some Warlords of Umbar. They are monsters. I also like how they've got a bit of a Gondorian feel to them as well. He's got some Lancers as well, just to back him up. So good on the charge. He's got some Castamir's Legion. He's backed up with some Corsair Blackguards. He's got 2 units of those. His front line made up of mainly pikemen, because pikemen are very good at holding the line, obviously vulnerable to missile fire. He's got some rangers that are going to be trying supporting them in that skirmish confrontation. He's got some Corsair archers here, and that's mainly his line. He's just he's obviously similar to myself. He's got some very expensive units and some cheap ones. Okay, so our opponents then for today. We've got Tundra Fox. You may have remembered him from a couple of videos I do for the Spawn of Sauron. He's playing the Realm of Workwood, so we do have elves as well, sorry. I thought that it was all light side humans, but obviously not. He's got some missile units here, followed up with some spearmen. He's got some heavy infantry. He's got some cavalry of his own, and he's got some missile cavalry. So he's got quite a contained small force, although admittedly that's what you get with the elves. He's got some high sort of value. He's probably got a lot of hidden units that I can't just quite see just now. Moving over then, we've got Gondor, played by Tom, who I don't think I've played with before, but he's got Gondor. He's got some guards of Skiliath. He's got some Gondor infantry. They're heading to the fort. He's got some Gandalf's retinue, so you'll actually see Gandalf here. There he is, leading his troops. We've got some more guards of Skiliath, so a few good number of spearmen here. So we've got some Fountain Guard, more spearmen units. Just Gondor spearmen, Gondor archers, more spearmen that's going to be blocking that secondary bridge there. More God of the infantry. He's got some archers. So he's got quite a broad mix as well of troops. In the back lines, then you can see that we have Entefix. He's also plays a lot of Spawn of Sauron. He's playing Rohan, so he's got a significant proportion of cavalry. He's got some skirmishers here, backed up with the red shield of Erkenbrand. So you can see them there, very similar to this name escapes me. The Red Marshals. He's also got some missile cavalry, and he's being supported by a number of spearmen of his own. He's got some shield maidens, he's got some archers, and he's got some more spearmen. So a lot of spearmen knocking around, and he's also got his first marshal's bodyguard. And then the final force here on the side, which was opposite to myself, we have Lyndon with his Coda. He's got some wardens for his missile troops. There they are, charging away. He's got some lancers of his own here because it's Lyndon and they always have lancers. He's got some horse lords. And he's backing himself up with some wardens, some marines. He's got a good number of marines. So he's got a lot of, obviously, Javi spear units there. I'm just going to speed up, back up to full speed now, to watch what's happening. So I'm not going to be moving around too much in the this side of the field. Basically what happens is we weren't quite sure. Neither of us wanted to take the bridge, because the bridge seemed like a bit of a death trap, as with most things. Also because getting over the bridge is always tough. There's some customers ranges for Sin. And Sin goes to try and take this watch down. Now what happens is, most of us see the movement on the back lines of Rohan and Lyndon, all sending their cavalry over to this far side. Now we think that this is an opportunity to have victory because it's so close to their fort, which gives us a bit of advantage. But also we have big concerns about Sin's ability to hold out against such large numbers of cavalry units. So you can see that already Dreezy's moving over a number of his infantry. And along the back, I'll be racing my cavalry over relatively quickly to come and join him. And like I said, I've got some camels in there, and I mean that's kind of the more cheap ones. Basically, I mean, when I took them, it was a Jav unit that scares horses. How could I not want them? Since having a little bit of trouble here in terms of his archer sort of combat, he's seen that Tundra's moving some heavy cavalry around, and he's just struggling a little bit with the elven accuracy. He's losing a few too many men, so he's pulling back. He wants them to come to him. It does mean he loses the hill, or at least currently he isn't, but it does mean that he can try and draw his opponents towards him. He does have some crossbows, which have a pretty good position actually in their stealth location. So a lot of people struggle with crossbows sometimes. They kind of feel that they're difficult to aim and angle, and it used to be a little bit like that people used to say the same for javelins, but I think it's just understanding about how best to use them, because they obviously don't want to shoot their own allies in the back of the head, and their arc is different. So you can see what Sin's done here is he's got a tiered effect with his crossbows, so they can look right across to where this watchtower is, and you can see these troops coming in. He's just really, I guess, waiting for his moment to strike, waiting for those really expensive units to appear that he really wants to zone out, whilst they continue to use most of their ammunition against his archers, which I think he doesn't mind too much about losing, as he moves more of his forces forward to try and hold the line. I guess he's going to be a little bit worried for his pike units with the elven archers, but what he's doing is he's going to be staggering his units. So he's got his infantry here with their shield bonus, and they're going to be trying to support his pikes with this sort of tiered effect. He has taken his cavalry forward. It looks like he just wants to keep them on the wings. They're mainly here to try and zone out the opponents while we continue to move forward. And you can see that the Erkenbrad's missile archers are already having a little bit of fun. Again, he's keeping his crossbows well hidden. He could possibly take some good pot shots at these guys. I guess, again, he still wants to wait for that opportune moment. He obviously doesn't feel at this stage he needs to worry too much. And he's probably waiting for something a bit more juicy to appear. He might be looking at those heavy cavalry at the back, possibly. So you can see here that we're starting to get some more forces over. So we've got Camille's Dragon Knights from from Dreezy of the Dark Cloud. And you can see that he's come over to try and support for that cavalry sort of engagement, because we're a little bit lacking over here. You can see, so this blob is my units, and so the list is kind of getting caught in one another. So originally we thought that Rohan might try and come over, so we started stacking up with one another, but very quickly, oh, I got some trollmen and some berserkers, because of course I do. There they are, looking pretty sweet, if I do say so myself. Nothing really comes of it. So again, I won't spend too much time on this area. You can see that I'm moving troops over just to go and reinforce that far side, but a great deal does not happen here, so we're really not going to bother too much. At some point you'll see my troops on the minimap stand on there like idiots. So, not much to say at this early stage, really. Really, both sides are kind of feeling each other in a non-sexual way, and trying to see what they can come up with. Again, Sin being very cautious with his crossbows. You can see that Entifix has got into the circle shoot formation. Yeah, it's not something you see very often. The idea being, I guess, that because they're moving, they're a more difficult target to shoot. I'm yet to be convinced about how effective it is. I do sometimes think that arrows probably just hit the unit behind it as they target rather than hitting into the center. But, you know, maybe it does work. I've never really tested it out, in fairness. But you can see now that the Riddermark skirmishers got a little bit close there and they got punished a bit. So Sin's moving forward. He's going to try and get in, see if he can, again, push forward a little bit more. I think he's probably also a little bit worried about his Corsair crossbows. Perhaps they were a little bit in the way. And apologies if you just saw someone logging into their Steam. I had thought that I'd stop that from coming through as notifications. So you can see here that these guys are pulling back. They're trying to reform themselves. They haven't moved up their infantry. If you see here, they've kept over. So they've got a nice position here with their archers over the river, which basically leaves them pretty well protected except for this far side. So they're basically able to shoot unmolested except for from more skirmishers. But they're not coming forward into us, if you see that there. But partly it's because they don't have a huge number of infantry here yet. Mainly archers and cavalry. And they've invested a lot into this. So you can see here, okay, so these are my Beastmasters, right? So I brought these guys in to throw some javelins, and they will both immediately pretty much break to the assault here. Their morale just isn't up for it. I made a mistake, which was that, I mean, my Serpent Bodyguard will be fine. I made a mistake, really, that I moved these guys up too far ahead of Sin's lines. I wanted them to try and get a few throws in, but when it came to commanding them to pull away again, I think they were still trying to go through their throw command. And I kind of fell into a bit of a trap there, losing a large proportion of my camels, although admittedly they weren't too expensive. What was more annoying was the loss of a number of my Blackguard. Sorry, Serpent Guard. But they did make it so that our opponents had to engage a little bit, but really, Dreezy and Sin had to come and help me out in that one. I mean, I just overextended. I had thought that maybe the Warlords would come and join me, but Sin's a bit busy, preoccupied, dealing with the rest of his troops. So, so yeah, you can just see my camels just running away. Some of them do come back, admittedly, and they do come back and start using their ammunition. You can see them here, and they start making a bit more of a name for themselves, throwing javelins around. But really, they didn't do much for me. You can just see that they mainly just died. Rip camels. But it is starting to make things move a bit more. So you can see that actually my engagement here with my Serpent Guard didn't go too bad. But really it's just a massive sort of cavalry. Now at this point, because we know that they're not really committing much in the way of infantry, we're just going to start sending the pikes forward. Now we know that it's quite difficult for us to have this engagement because we're really moving into their prepared location. But actually, their prepared location is lacking in infantry for the most part. You can see the archers lined up on this side. You can see that they're now starting to move over more archers. But actually, we're still not really seeing much in the way of infantry. Now, admittedly, there are the elves who are sort of firing ammunition as well. But it's really just the cavalry. So we're like, well, we've got a lot of pikes. We can just muscle them out the way. Like, we have no issue with taking this forward in terms of a combat. We start moving our cavalry out into the flanks here on the far side, just because it's getting a little bit tight here. And we think, right, well, okay, we'll just do this. Let's go for it. Let's get our troops involved. And you can see that immediately we start forcing back sort of Tundra when he realizes that actually he's got really nothing to back himself up. Now, the biggest issue here is, do we overextend in the same way I did with my cavalry before? And really, we kind of learnt the lesson from that previously. And you can see that really we've now got sort of at least 1.5 armies together. As well as using our archers and cavalry to sort of zone them out. Though you can see that the crossbowmen have moved, so they probably know the crossbowmen exist now. But at this point, I mean, they were in a position which we couldn't keep them because they couldn't support us effectively. But they are far enough back so they can't really be noticed. In fact, I'm struggling to notice them. I don't know where they've gone. Sin's hiding them. This is a video from Sin's perspective, by the way, if people are wondering why it's not me that's in the light green and Sin is. So you can see that Dreezy's already started to take the combat straight into the elves. He's not going to let these guys flee. He wants to make sure that these guys have to engage, and you can see that Gondor's going to have to come in now to support him. This does make things slightly difficult for Dreezy, as he's now facing the majority of the infantry force here, and having to go into the prepared line of spearmen. But so he does risk getting outflanked. You can see here now that the spearmen now trying to come around the side, push through this gap alongside the red-marked skirmishers, and he's having to reform. As these kind of units are holding okay, but they just risk themselves being recharged. Coming in to support them, then you can see that there are some heavy infantry. Now, I had thought these skirmishers were going to turn around and rear charge, which they do now, actually, like I thought they would. And you can see here that the Gondor Forces coming in. This is really difficult for this pocket of units here. I mean, they basically got to the point where, I mean, they're fighting to the death, which is great. It helps the frontline spearmen hold a little bit longer. But, I mean, that's a loss of a unit cheaply, one might say. But the sheer mass of forces coming into them on this side is difficult. Dreezy had a difficult choice of, did he keep letting the archers shoot him, or did he try and push forward? And he went for the push forward. And he's trying to get now his own sort of mini surround. But I don't think it's going to last very well. You can see here that Sin is busy pushing up on this flank. Now, partly I think it's because he wants to try and turn them. You can see here that Dreezy is also supporting him as Sin moves forward with this Castamir's Legion. Now, we still have this cavalry which is causing problems, but so am I with mine. You can see here that we're trying to push hard into this heavy infantry troop. You can see that Sin's got a bit of a surround going on these guys, and as Sin's backing himself up with his archers further back, targeting these cavalry units here of the missile cavalry from the Wardens, which are obviously returning fire. But we're pushing them further and further back. Now, the idea being is that we just want to try and break them into sort of two pockets, take out this sort of cavalry pocket on this side, and then try and then swing round onto the far, while they also have to try and defend their castle. You can see here that I charge in against the Wardens, forcing them back, although I'm starting to lose a good few of my Serpent's bodyguard myself, but I do get a nice rear charge in here into the Elven infantry. You can see them breaking them. Meanwhile, further around, Sin's also doing his own rear charges into the same sort of unit type here on the other side, with the surround that he's already got in place. And that looks like that's possibly going to get broken. Are they going to hold on? Looks like they're going to hold on. Meanwhile, however, we're getting the same kind of treatment. You can see here that the Dragon Knights are trying to face up with the skirmishers here, as they were trying to do the same kind of thing with some spearmen coming in now to take on the Blackguards toe-to-toe, while the javelins of these Blackguards continue to throw. There's another rear charge coming in for myself. It looked a little bit of a rubbish one, to be honest. I think I was trying to go for these archers here, but I just got blocked by the tree line, I think. All in all, it looks a bit crazy. You can see here that the horse archers and the corsairs a little bit caught out now, and you can see that the wind blades are having to make sure they really protect with Sin these guys here, because we don't have any infantry anymore that we can spare on this far side. So this is where our cavalry is mainly devoted, because this is also where the majority of our skirmishers are, including the crossbows, which are trying to get some flanking shots in, as Sin comes in with some pike units to go into the back of some more of these elven forces. So now it's really just cavalry over this side, with Sin's Legion there kind of just zoning out these guys, although I think getting shot at pretty hard by those archers, you can see. So on the other side, though, things aren't looking as well. So we do have some heavy infantry kind of messing around the back lines, but they are by themselves. Meanwhile, we've got the forces of Tom and Entifix in our back lines of their cavalry, going for the Dragon Knights and going for nice, cheap, easy targets. You can see them chasing the Corsair archers here to try and get some of them to be taken down, and Windblades are now having to be committed to try and go for the heavy cavalry here but it does rout them. It was a fantastic moment here with the Windblades were able to rout these guys, backed up with the Dragon Knights for the sort of pincer attack, which was really useful. They did end up fighting to the death, but it was another cavalry off the field, and they are pretty big in that. Crossbows there unfortunately getting punished, and the horse archers there breaking just from the numbers and unable to support. You can see that Sin sends his lancers in to try and just see them off, and it does work. It does break that heavy cavalry that were charging into the Corsairs, which is really useful just because we really need that stopping power that they can provide. As they are turning to shoot into possibly the Red Shield? Yeah, I think it must be. So Erkenbrad's forces here, breaking a unit of Corsair infantry as the Red Shields continue to push forward there. Looks like they're going to try and go for these Corsair Blackguard along with the Sons of Earl, I want to say. I'm still trying to use as best I can the Windblades linking up with the Corsairs, linking up with my my Serpent Guard to see what we can do. Oh, there's a little bit of lag there. I do apologise if you guys are getting that as well. Not sure what's caused that. No, my luck, it will be a Windows update. I'm sure it will sort itself out shortly. What we'll do is we'll turn the speed down ever so slightly while this catches up. Whilst it's doing that, I'll just quickly show you what's happening on the other side of the battlefield. So, on the other sides of the battlefield, we're kind of a little... Again, it's still a bit of a standoff as we continue to take more and more troops over into the main line. I'll just turn this back up to full speed. So, Dreezy's troops really are still here for the most part, and you can see so are mine and Lister's in terms of our infantry. We're still just kind of having a bit of a standoff with these guys, but you can see that we slowly start thinking, well, they're never going to cross the bridge. We're never going to cross the bridge. The only advantage of standing here is that they're also standing here. But we're starting to get the point where Sin's forces are running out. You can see the balance of power hasn't shifted. If anything, we've lost slightly more, although of those that we've lost, they're probably not as valuable as some of the cavalry forces. But you can see that it's still really close. I mean, there's 3% in it, and the balance of power hasn't changed whatsoever. And in terms of positioning, it's hard to say who's getting the better deal. We're obviously extending ourselves further and further as we come over this ridge from where our reinforcements would be, making it easier for them to join up. But in the same sense, we're the ones that are now choosing our position of where we want to fight, which makes it more difficult for them. You can just see the sheer number of dead. So Gondor is now in a bit of a pickle. So his archers now are getting harassed by the Dragon Knights, and his Marines are in a difficult position. If they were slightly further forward, they might be able to support a bit more, but I guess he really wants to get those javelin throws in, and he's trying to take out the cavalry with them. As you can see there, that Gondor just trying to hold on from the charges. You can see there that I'm down to 6 now in my bodyguard, as more jabs come flying overhead, really into that blob, which is probably a good target. They probably didn't do too many misses there. Gondor trying to work around this little village. I think he really does want to line up in front of his archers, but they took a bit of a difficult route for him. The elves kind of down to a couple of units really now outside of the main fort itself, and they're pretty depleted as they just kind of stand there waiting. On the other side, you can see that he does still have a couple here, but they're kind of separated from the main force. These are kind of the troops that were inside the city. And right now, we're quite happy to continue to fight those that are still outside. The Lancers there getting an okay charge, although I don't think much is being taken from them. Whilst the Lancers continue to just run around. Relatively healthy Lancers as well. They're still close to 30. We do still have cavalry in our back lines, I think, or we did for some time. It did take a long time to get rid of them. I think the Windblades, in the end, did see off Erkenbrand. Nope, he's still there. There you go. I was going to say, I'm sure that they're meant to be in our back lines a bit more. So you can see that he's going for the horse archers here. And he does get a good strike on the horse archers, unfortunately. But there's not a lot we can do. These guys are back in the back lines for some time. We do keep sending our own cavalry to try and face them, but they just had more than we did to begin with. The only advantage we have is that we are starting to bring over more forces from Dreezy, which is trying to capture these guys. But look at this. He got a really stunning charge onto this heavy infantry unit. He took losses of 2 for what must have been sort of almost 30. Which is a real pain. And you can see the Windblades just continuing to try and chase these guys down. The Earls actually somehow outpacing the Windblades. We don't really catch up with them. And the only time we do catch up with them is with some pincer movements. But you can see here that it's just one of the fastest, if not the fastest cavalry in the game. You can't catch them. It's really struggling. So there were some spikes around as well, so we were really worried. There they are. So we were really worried about running our own units over them. And the thing was that this was really pulling away a valuable unit that we wanted to send back into the fight, but it kept these guys busy. But yeah, see, just kiting them around. Really didn't think that we would see that happening. On the other side, you can see here, I was harassing some heavy infantry to make sure that they broke and stayed away with my Serpent's bodyguard before coming in to try and support the horse archers, which was trying to take on Erkenbrand. Obviously, the horse archers not as good in melee, but combined, we were able to make these guys rout. Finally seeing them off the field. There they are. So these guys are now coming back towards us. I think I do a little bit of a Hail Mary at the last of my cavalry. So we'll just see. We'll see how this goes for us. Yeah, I think I just charge down off the hill at them and hope to clash into their flank. There we go. Wasn't the greatest charge in the world, but it did do the job. Unfortunately, they just slipped through. They were just a little bit too big for us. And again, the Windblades, still not able to catch him up. After all that, still not able to. Now we've got a bit of a problem here that we're going to get these spearmen. Seemingly they're going to get a charge on them. We were quite worried about that. But fortunately, I think he gets a bit of a sideways charge into his own troops. Oh, his allies' troops at least. Which doesn't make it pay off as well as we thought it could possibly do. So you can see Gondor marching more of his infantry and spearmen over. As we just keep trying to get these slippery sons. The son of a B rather than son of an E. Tell you that right now. The last of the elves really being committed now, going against the shadow bows that we've got here. On the other side, things have died down a little bit. The crossbows are still doing what they can against the cavalry. Again, the slight problem we have here is that we're running out of infantry to really support this. It's mainly, I mean, the nearest thing we've got to infantry are the Black Guards at this point, as these charges come in on a pretty soft front line from Sin. Again, more lag coming in, so I do apologise for that. I'm sure it will clear up in a moment. Oh, you can see now that more and more troops being devoted over. You can see the main bulk of forces actually on the other side, unless they're all hidden, it's really ours, but partly that's because we're evil men, and so we have a lot of trash. Horse archers finally being broken there. Let's go in and see how this fight's going for Dreezy. You can see here it's a bit of a weird one. So whereas before he had the surround on the elves, he then got surrounded himself by the infantry from Gondor. Now the spear line is just struggling, and partly that's because he's getting a bit of a sideways attack here. And also because the infantry, just the mass is quite large, although admittedly they're not as efficient in their combat as they could be. I would have probably taken this Gondor infantry around the back to do an attack, while the spearmen held, because the spearmen should held pretty well. Meanwhile, he's got a good position there for his archers. They're firing over the top with his rangers there. I mean, they are still trying to support, I think, his cavalry back here, but I'm not sure it would be as worth it. But I guess, I mean, keeping them alive might be useful, I suppose. But they are down to 3. I think he was actually going for the crossbows. There were some crossbow units back here that the Suns were charging down. I think they were just trying to make sure the crossbows were well and truly dead. As some Marines come charging over, all 3 of them there. Although I only saw one there heroically making his stand. The cavalry there down to 2. So Gondor now starts bringing over more and more of his infantry. You can see he does still have Gandalf's retinue yet to be brought into the battle. Now, the one thing that we have got, which is interesting, is that because we're being pushed back, Gondor's rear of their front line is being exposed. And I think we start seeing some archer shots coming in here. You can see the hunters, and I think they were being firing into the zone. You can see the puffs of blood coming in. And then they've been now joined by the Camels Chosen. So, Gondor pushing possibly a little bit further than they intended to, making a bit of a block for themselves, which can now be exploited. Although in the same vein, it now starts making it so that these guys can start taking pot shots back the other way. But with the elves gone, we're feeling a little bit more happy about the situation. Things have, like I said, really died down in this far side now. You've just got some wardens and some scouts. The last of Sin's force is now wiped out for the most part. I think he might have maybe 1 or 2. Not sure where this lag's coming through over this side. Maybe just because so many dead bodies. So what we'll do is we'll ignore that and we'll head back over to the main combat, which for some reason seems to be less laggy than where all the dead units are. Again, probably knowing my luck, I've got a Windows update going in the background. It's probably just that's the situation I'm in. So I can only apologise to you guys. What we'll do is we'll slow it down slightly again. We'll wait for it to work its way through. It'll be one of those ones where it's kind of like, when you shut down, do you want to shut down and update? And I'll be like, yeah, there you go. Of course it is. So you can see here that the Rangers now getting stuck in the front line. They are pretty good in the front line, even being an archer unit. So you can see that more shots coming over the top. These Citadel Dard, though, I mean, they got a shield value, but I don't think these guys are being used particularly effectively right now. I think that, I mean, partly, I guess they're a screen for the Rangers, but I don't know why Tom wouldn't just start using them. I guess he's still maneuvering troops elsewhere, and I guess he's still happy with the fight here, although the tables are turning now that Dreezy has forced more of his elite troops in. He is getting some nice shots, though, from his Gondor archers into the side. But I think these guys would have to be committed relatively soon. They are being now just peppered for free by the hunters, which are just taking some free shots, although very few going down, really, partly because of just their shields. But you can see more and more shots coming in. I think they'll start wearing them down pretty well. Yeah, so what's happening elsewhere? Again, pretty much as I've said every other time, we're starting to get to the point where we're leaving just a show force. You can see here that Tom's moved some spearmen up to do a similar thing, really, just kind of shouting words at the spearmen on the other side as they do a bit of a shuffle dance on the bridge. But there's nothing there, and I think partly he's just leaving these guys there as an early warning signal in case we try and push and go for their rear. I'm now just charging my troops over, so these guys are just making their way. I'm like, right, this isn't happening. If Rohan really want to make their way over, then they can try. Leicester does send some forces over. I think these guys are going over just to, I guess, see whether Rohan is even paying attention. If he's so busy on the other side moving his cavalry, whether he'd notice some troops making their way across the bridge. But otherwise, I mean, I've basically left this in its entirety now, I think, if I remember rightly, and I've just ignored it. Everything of mine's heading over. There you go. So there's most of my stalkers. They're pretty much my only archer unit. I do have a few javies, but that's my archer. And you can see I do have some good units and some okay units. The demons of the desert, keep an eye out for these guys. These guys are going to be invaluable. They are expensive, and they have to be used in a very special way, and you've got to hope they don't get shot down, but if you can use them, they can be monsters. But yeah, you can see basically that my force is coming over to join the fray. Partly because I've got a lot of trash. And my trash can go up against Gondor's okay, because I've got a little bit of AP in some of them early units, and that's going to come into favour there. Hunter's still getting quite a good shot into this big long line, so you can see here that because of the way that they've turned to face... Oh, goodness. Because of the way they've turned to face, you can see that the archers are getting some nice shots in over the top. I'll zoom in once more things have died. The Helmingers are here and the scouts, they're still working there. So, if you remember rightly, I really wish I could draw on here, but if you remember rightly, we tried to circle them round and push them out. Basically, we ran out of steam once we got to the pushing part. So as much as we got them all the way back into their little sort of gully of a valley, at that point we just kind of ran out of forces because Sin was just not able to keep reinforcing with the troops he had, and Gondor came over a little bit quicker than, say, Dreezy could. So you can see now that we are now the ones that are being turned. So we've basically given up this side of the battlefield, at least for now, falling back ourselves over the river. Just trying to hold as best we can on this little corner here and hope that they can hold out for long enough for my forces to arrive as more and more Helmingers make their way over. Now, the only thing that we can be hopeful for is my infantry shouldn't do too badly against Helmingers. Now, here you can see the Gondor archers must be out of ammunition, as with a lot of the troops that seem to be charging forward. And I'm actually now just in time to arrive to try and stop these guys from getting in to the hunters with a side charge here from my warband as I start going in for a rear attack, just to try and clear them out. And you can see I've got a frontline attack with some warband coming in as well, because the Helmingers have basically both pushed forward. And I fancy my chances against those guys with my spearmen. Over here, we're just asking Dreezy to just hold on as long as he can. If he's got his general alive, to keep tooting that horn and hope that he can do something. Now, at this point, I start trying to make a bit of a battle line. I gave Dreezy enough time to pull out the majority of his hunters, whilst my warband spearmen get into formation and position. And you can see here I've got a sideways position here on the archers of Gondor, and I've got a frontline position here on the Helmingers. And I'm not pushing too far forward. I don't want the penalty for the hillside, but the Helmingers keep pushing in. They keep trying to chase down these hunters, which makes it a little bit difficult for me. So I am trying to send more units up. My beastmen unfortunately got caught by a group of 7 elves, and that was a bit of a shame because these guys had a nice position to start throwing, but you can see they're being hit pretty hard by the missile units on the far side that have spotted them, and they're getting just absolutely drenched with ammunition. So the beast hunters having a bit of trouble there. Camel's chosen pulling back here, but yeah, so the only advantage we've got is maybe some of these arrows. There you see some of the arrows actually killing the elves. I've made it so these hunters are still throwing, so they're actually in guard mode. I've told them to basically ignore the 5 elves and just keep trying to throw into the guards of Asciliath. So you'll see that sometimes they're still throwing their ammunition, but they're getting absolutely destroyed here. While these elves keep them basically locked in a little bit, and they keep trying to reform themselves. But I do get a couple throws off, but really they're not going to get rid of their ammunition anytime soon. Okay, so the bulk of my forces, I've decided that, unfortunately I couldn't say the hunters, they broke, but I've decided that what I want to do is try to get rid of these archers, because again I still fancy them as my best chance. I am worried about all these lancers up on the hillside and all these scouts, so I've got some spearmen here just to just kind of keep an eye on them. I've got some pikemen forming up as well, because I don't want my rear line being hit by all of that cav. You can hear the song of the people of my trollmen. There they are. They're singing away. As I just try and bring some sort of control back to this chaos and bring some battle lines back in. Now the problem is I don't have archers. I'm relying on Dreezy's archers to give me any form of skirmish capabilities here. You can see here that my berserkers now coming in against the Citadel Guard while they still training for the beastmen. The beastmen do still have some units left. They haven't been completely and utterly annihilated, and I'm just hoping that these berserkers can get rid of the Citadel Guard quick enough so that I can do something and get them elsewhere. You can see I even send my own troll men in. I really need to clear these guys out because I'm so exposed on this sideline here. I pushed forward my spearmen, deciding that actually it didn't look like this cavalry was going to be charging anytime soon, so I try and move the flank on this light infantry. Again, I feel a little bit happy with my spearmen. I've got quite a good number of them. They're pretty dense in their formation, and I can back them up with these dismounted Serpent Guards to just try and push through as I start using this more elite troop with the Beast Hunters, with the sort of war band who are holding the line relatively well just to get that extra kills on. Because again, I'm not too worried about archers. Oop, as we start getting a bit more lag there. Meanwhile, the Serpent Guards just keep pushing up and try and, I guess, refill this hole I made for myself from before. I'm a little bit worried about these archers coming back into me, but these guys broke once already, so I know that they're not as much of a big deal as I thought they could possibly become. Again, the the good guys are sending more and more archers in. Again, I don't mind the archers, although I'm a little worried now about the lancers, although they do get stopped by their own Gondor forces here from being able to make a true charge. You can see here that they do rout my spearmen, which was really annoying. I really didn't want that to happen. Fortunately, they're quite a big size of a troop, and I think that I do get to bring them back with my general, but they are running directly through all of this front line. I could really done without that as the fire arrows continue to rain in and rake through my troops. Meanwhile, you can see that we've got a bit of a hole here with some blobs appearing. Now, where are my Dust Devils? You can see my Stalkers now just trying to kill whatever I can from the Rangers on the other side. Where are they? Ah, here's the Demons of the Desert. Right. Let's turn this down so you can see this in its full glory. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Don't ruin my glory. Bloody lag. Right. Goodness, what's going on? Right, so there's just so much fights going on. Here, there's a large bulk of sort of Fountain Guard and troops which could absolutely annihilate my forces. You can see that I'm already starting to get some breaking here as these guys come in. Now what I'm hoping is that you're all going to see these guys go flying in a moment when the javelins come throwing their way over, and these guys start hitting the deck pretty quick. Let's see what happens as we do this. So again, at this point, most of my warband are out for the count, and it's really just my dismounted Serpent Guard holding. And it looks like I'm being a bit strange here because I'm allowing them to power more and more into this sort of weird circular blob on my side, but I'm pretty confident my Serpent Guard are going to hold. And the whole reason of me doing this is to try and make it to have the perfect opportunity to use my javelins. And I'm really hoping that these guys are going to throw soon, because I keep saying they're going to throw, and they haven't thrown anything. Dreezy at one point looks like he's about to reinforce this line, and I basically shouted at him and say, no, please don't do it. Just so instead he goes in for a sideways charge here. But, oh, come on, where's these javelins? Also, again, I apologise for the lag. I don't know what this is being caused by. Obviously, me coming back to doing recording has decided that the world hates me and it wants to work against me. Such is the way of my life, I guess. I'm almost certain it'll be something like an update, but hopefully you can bear with me for this one. Zoom out a little bit more. Come on, guys. Are you going to throw or what? Alright, just try and keep an eye on that area. They are meant to be throwing into it, but I don't know what's going on now. At one point, they definitely threw into this, and all these guys went flying, and I felt super proud of myself, and I thought, yes, I've contributed. But as it stands, you can't see that, and I don't know what's going on. Arrgh. Arrgh, arrgh. Regardless, they do throw into it. This doesn't seem to be happening. So I'm having a constant sort of unroute for my warband, but they've kind of done the job that I wanted them to, which was to restabilize everything a bit more. You can see here that there's the spearman still holding my backline from Dreezy, but I'm starting to get the point now where I'm the one that can start outflanking the enemy. Again, if you remember, on this side here, it was mainly archers, and I wasn't too fussed about it. It was these guys that I was concerned about, which is what the Demons of the Desert are technically throwing into. And you can see that they do actually start some of them breaking over here just from the sheer power of the throws. But what's going on with them, I don't know. They definitely did, and you'll have to just trust me on it. So, on this far side then... Whoop, come on, camera. On this far side then, I'm starting to have a bit more control over the situation. The archers just can't keep up against my Serpent Guard, and you can see I'm still really healthy in terms of numbers. I am getting charged still in the back, which really isn't helping, and I do get Dreezy to come up and support me with his spearmen a little bit closer to try and stop that from happening, as I'm being pretty sort of soundly beaten in that flank from those cavalry charges from those lancers, and it's really starting to hurt my formation. Luckily the spears do come in to support at least. At this point, it's really just kind of everyone's heading to this zone. There's almost nothing left on the far side anymore, and Dreezy has nothing left. I have some things left which I'm pulling over, and the last sort of stand is from Leicester, who still has a relatively strong unit base going. See here that Rohan still has cavalry, because of course they still have cavalry, just to upset me. And you can see here that the spearmen now coming to support my rear. You can see they faced the other way. So as much as they got their back to the enemy, because of the number of archers that are in combat, we've basically felt it was pretty safe just to turn them the other way. And that saves my dismounted Serpent Guards. You can see that they were 115 before, and now they're down to sort of 67 after going from looking like they were going to win to starting to have some real trouble. So my demons are still throwing. There's this big gap here, which I was just praying they wouldn't charge through to continue to allow me to throw the last of my ammunition out and get some final kills, which is what I'm trying to do here. And in the meantime, the last of the sort of archers from Dreezy here are being forced into battle, along with what's left of my pike unit as well. Still being harassed by cavalry forces. The last of the Windblades there, sent packing just from sheer numbers. It does have some Chieftain's Guard here, but I think these guys might be on their way out. My pikemen also just kind of lined up. I think I do turn them round as well, so they face the other way. As a charge comes up. Now this charge is going to come up, and it's not going to like that because it is actually charging into that pike formation, which we set up before, if you remember. So it doesn't really get much in the way of kills. And I mean, they can keep charging into that pike formation as many times as they want. I'll be happy for them to do that. You can see now, however, the balance of power starting to shift a little bit. So enemies killed now starting to pull away, although not by much. I mean, we're at 3% again. If you remember, the deficit on us was 3% before. But the balance of power just starting to shift ever so slightly in the favour of ourselves as more and more of our troops come over here. Although, admittedly, they're getting tired. They've got to go a long way. Fortunately, Khan is bringing a lot of missile troops, which can start picking out some of those lighter sort of forces on the opposition, which kind of remain. Most of their main frontline troops have been defeated just for a war of attrition, and their remaining troops are mainly these archers that they have for themselves, which have been firing for some time, except for Rohan's, which is coming in now, and they have a lot of spearmen, which is obviously concerning, but spearmen aren't killers, they're line holders. They still have a significant proportion of cavalry, though, which is always a shame. And we also have the Citadel Guard. Now, what I would say is, you remember we were talking about those fortresses. So you can see over here that the good guys have almost nothing remaining in their fortress to defend. They've got one unit of shield maidens and one unit of marines currently holding this location, which I remember, if this is a victory location. However, on the other side of the map, we still have a large number of troops here. And you can see that we do start now moving them out. As things becoming a little bit more dicey, we think, right, well, they're never going to make an attack now on our victory point. Now's the time we can start moving these guys out. We can start making our way over. And you can see that Sin's now doing that, and these are the forces that I put at the wrong tower before. They're now making their way over. So I got some champions here, some warband, and some pikemen. The only ones really worth noting for anything is going to be these champions, just because they're a very elite, expensive unit. The other guys are basically just trash to protect them while they do their job. See, there is a general here, just kind of, I guess, hanging out. And he is going to try and make his way over. He'll be going up against some footmen in tight formation, but he is going to try and make his way over. I guess this is sort of a bit of a last stand for him. Oh no, he stopped. Never mind. He just went forward ever so slightly. Back to the proper fight then. So you can see here on the other bridge, by the way, these guys, all these Gondor troops died. So there was a moment where they tried to come over the bridge, if you remember, and they were standing there. While the fight was happening, they just moved up their troops and kind of threw javies into their face. And that's kind of what happened there, because they didn't go away. Over here you can see that Leicester's still firing with his archers. He's having a bit of a skirmish sort of conflict over here. Working out quite well for him. These archers are a little bit blobby, so if you target the sort of front unit, you've got a nice little raking shot, and units that miss the front lines hitting the rear lines. Not much you can do about those shield maidens there, but he's not really targeting them. He's trying to take out these archers before they do anything significant. Oh, the lag! Okay, maybe there's something else going on which I don't know about. Okay, so we've got the first general down. This is Rohan's general, I believe, falling there against my trollmen, and we've got, I think they're just Gondor spearmen, or pikemen even, going up against the trollmen. Not a fight I particularly wanted for my my trollmen, to be honest. I didn't really want them up against pikes. I wanted them to be going against normal infantry. There's our general going for Dreezy. So it's 1-for-1 in quick succession. And there's been a lot of breaking and morale issues so far. So now the halberds are coming in, which is going to be useful for clearing it. So a lot of fighting now happening around the tower as we start bringing in the additional numbers. You can see here as well that the Brotherhood of the Lance came and showed up, and that kind of scared off a lot of the cavalry, which is still kind of roaming around these black lines. You can see here that we've got those chieftains from before, and they're having to go up against the Lancers. The Lancers are kind of fresh and definitely in the mood for some killing. And you can see here just cutting them through. The missile cavalry just can't withstand the Brotherhood of the Lance, especially with the pincer they did with the Vanguard. And they start clearing up a lot of those cav that was still lying around, which is really useful. Just because a lot of this is weighing on the archers that we still have. And we don't have the mobility anymore, losing the majority of our cavalry. So you can see he's reformed his archers, which is for the best, I think. In terms of the blob is now kind of a bit of a weird one, and I'll try and explain it as best I can. So, it's kind of a weird... So Gondor's pushing up this way, if that makes sense. And then Leicester's trying to punch a hole through his flank. But in the same sense, he's trying to make a bit of a U shape here with his halberds, but they're being harassed now by the spearmen. This is kind of coming down to Khand versus Rohan in the final moments. Again, you can see the Brotherhood of the Lance having good exchanges here with Rohan's cavalry. And really kind of just doing what he can. So he's got the Riders of the Fold here, but really they just can't... They can't commit against these two forces that are still remaining, and we start sort of working their cavalry down, thankfully, because they just had so much. I think we'll see another charge here coming in. So Gandalf's retinue here on 21. They get caught in the side, but they slip through because they're so elite. They didn't lose anyone. Less so for the Riders of the Fold. They just can't eke their way out, and you can see them falling there pretty quick. And the Marauders here just to mop them up with some infantry. Just too many, and they rout. So the real threat, really, from the cavalry is going to be just Gandalf's retinue at this point. Which are there. We don't really care about those guys. So, it is a mess. That's all I can say about it, and a laggy mess at that. But we are turning the tide. Now, again, it might seem strange. It might look like, well, surely the heroes are winning. We're starting to see that they've stretched themselves along all these lines. We're looking pretty thin. Okay, we've got some cav, but, I mean, Gandalf's retinue could probably beat the Lancers, who are starting to wear themselves out a bit, down to 14 here. And now the Chieftains are now going in for a one-on-one with Gandalf, and I think they'll probably come out the worst from that. I'm just battling with the camera here. So you think, well, this is a done deal. It must be a done deal. Now, the one thing that does happen is that with Gandalf's forces busy with the Vanguard, we do get a good charge into the rears of the Marines, but again, it's a little bit choke pointy. But the reason why we still look so good on the balance bar is these troops which are legging it. They're running as fast as they can over the other side of the map. That's the one thing that the other forces, because of the location we fought in, don't have to worry about. They can bring reinforcements from the fort relatively quickly. There is a small skirmish here, so they did get over the bridge to fight the elves, you can see there. But they are feeling pretty confident about their fight, partly because it's just kind of light infantry and a depleted general's unit. Whether that holds out, unsure, but they've got the numbers, really, so this is something that they should feel pretty comfortable with if you zoom in. See here that this kind of taking on this more assassin unit, really. The assassin unit did actually creep over a bridge at one point. I'm sorry, he missed it, and threw daggers at a bunch of, I think it was Leicester's troops, just a point-blank dagger throwing. But obviously, you want to use the daggers against more elite units just because of the strength that they've got. So I don't think he was too worried about having them use it on his general infantry. But they did come over and do that. And you can see that now that they've been caught, again, they're very good for assassinating, hence the assassin unit. But they'll struggle in a prolonged melee, which is kind of what they're in now, I guess. But the general's unit still seems pretty confident. And you can see here that more of the First Marshal's bodyguard is roaming around. So they still do have troops, but they're a little bit far away, I think, to support the main fight, even if they do win here. You can see that they do end up making the rout, probably just because of the fear effect of going up against the Elven general forces. Now, this does leave this area open, so they could choose now, if they wanted to go over the bridge and beeline it for the fort. It would be a mistake, just because of the troops that we've got here still, but they could do it. Right, back over to the horror. Dead upon dead, blood upon blood. You know, no one will remember what happened this day. But the people... Oh, God. So there's another general down. It looks like that is, I think, actually my general. that's fallen there. It looked like it was Leicester's, but I'm pretty sure that Leicester's general isn't in that unit. I think it was mine. He must be just sort of out by himself there. So in terms of the lines then, you can see that they don't really make any sense. We've got archers that are fighting the retainers, which is a good fight for us. We've got just kind of piles of dead. There's no more archers over this side anymore just because they're all out of ammunition. Spearmen moving up with the guards of Skiliath. There's nothing really left remaining here. I've got forces breaking all over the place because they're trash. But the reinforcements now, the reinforcements are coming. There's just so many dead bodies on the battlefield here. Let's move over and have a look at these guys that are legging it over. Again, apologies if you're getting too much lag. I'm not quite sure what this is. And I'll stop saying apologies for the lag soon. Okay, so Gandalf's retinue. They've got him amongst a bunch of bowmen. They're doing and hacking around. Now, the bowmen aren't bad. If you see, they do have a shield and swords. They can take a little bit of punishment. Obviously, they share their ammunition as well, so losing them isn't too bad. But anything that's a good infantry unit, we kind of want to try and keep alive. And something which is kind of this duality unit that still has ammunition, we want to keep going. Gandalf's retinue, starting to lose troops, though. Getting a little bit tired. Struggling just with the mass of forces they're having to charge into, and they're kind of, there's not really much that's supporting them anymore. You can see now that the tribesmen moving up, and if they got a throw against that at this point, I think that's those guys done and dusted. Is Gandalf still with them? Whoops, they've gone invisible. What wizardry is this? I can only assume Gandalf is still with him. Although it may have been Gandalf that had died before, actually, when I thought it was my guy, since Gandalf isn't here anymore. Although I think that Gandalf isn't technically a general. He's a unit as part of the unit. Or he's a sprite, I think. I'll have to get that confirmed again. I think it was to try and remove like hundreds of Saruman's for Isengard being on the field at the same time. So yeah, the loose formation, making it so the impact of the charge isn't as big. The charge wasn't fantastic really either. Now he's in range to get shot at. It looks like he's going to get some missiles fired at him from Sin there with his elites. Down to 8 now. They're going for a rear charge with Marauders. Did drop a fair few. There's looks like about 15 dropped in the charge. Considering that's only several of them, that's pretty good. Whether he'll hold on or break, that's another thing. He's still trying to slip away from the Harbingers of Castamere that are coming in. And then on the other side, there's my champions from before, the ones that are probably the only thing that's worth their florins left in my forces anymore, now that they've arrived. You see this big long train of broken forces from our opponents, just kind of all trying to make their way off the map at the same time. Oh god! This lag! I should never have returned to doing any commentary. I'll never do it again. Shield Maidens here look like they're in reserve. Not sure why. They've probably thrown all our ammunition and now just kind of waiting to see what the play is going to become. I think they're now going to make their way back for the final stand. Most of the troops now will be working their way back to the fortress. And you can see here that they're being supported and covered by the 1st Marshal's bodyguard, which are kind of just zoning out troops whilst they sort of flee for their lives, whilst we bring those reinforcements in. Fresh and both unfresh at the same time, just because of the sheer distance they've charged. Okay, so you can see up here, remember I was talking before about taking the fort. Let's try and get over there now. You can see here that they are sending units over to our fort. Just a couple here, General's unit, and in the front line here, that Assassin's unit. Again, they're going to be finding a fair few waiting for them. We've got some footmen, we've got some marauders, we've got some archers here in a high elevated position, and we've got some spearmen, and they're falling back because I think they want them to come in to the archer range. So we'll keep an eye on them. We'll keep an eye on them. So make my way back over to Lag Central. So this is what's basically happening. There's a big train here of forces from the good guys that are trying to make their way back to the fort. The fort being here, quite a nice position. They've got a little bit of a nice slope here to defend. There is a secondary entrance on the other side, but there's also means there's a sallying point, I suppose. So these guys are coming back. Now, at the same time, the cavalry unit of the 1st Marshal's Bodyguard are trying to stop any of our forces from just trying to charge these guys in the back and picking them off before they get there. I think actually the Guards of Osgiliath are moving a little bit slow. I think they're still in pike formation. Oh, too many dead sprites. You can see here that these are the forces now that we have remaining. Pretty healthy now when you're looking at them. They are no joke for the purposes of this. We still have some strong forces. There is, I think, some troops we do catch out. You can see here that we have the Narrow Arrow Sentinels. We have some Harbingers of Castamere. We've got some Water Infantry trainers still there. I mean, Sin's final 3 are 3 really strong units. And he's mixed it up with Spearmen, which I think also actually have some arrows or javies. He's got his archers themselves, and he's got his Harbingers for that extra sort of shock infantry. My pikemen are broken because, you know, I mean, they're my troops, so of course they have. Of course they have. And you can see here that, yeah, there's the guards that are trying to make their escape. And you can just see it from the corner there. There's the 1st Marshal's units that are trying to support them, making sure they don't get taken out as they flee. They're now, I think, in normal formation. You can see those guys coming over. Very quickly then, because I'll see if I can get over to catch the final stand over on their assault at the fort, which was kind of a little bit of a Hail Mary from them, I think, really. They're trying to find a way in to take it out. You can see they're just going to move around the side. I don't think they want to get shot up too much. But there's just only a fool's hope, I think, for taking this fort. I don't know what happened to the other unit that was here. I think they... I mean, there's no bodies, so... I'm guessing they broke. Yeah. Oh, there's even some crossbowmen. I think they must have broken, because I don't see the other troops that were here. I think Sin's general actually is there with those last 2... lords, which are just hanging out over here with the last 2 of his lancers. So I think they're just going to stay there and be annoying. So we'll head back over. I think they're being shot at even, although I don't think they'll be able to get a very good line of sight with the wall there. Right, so what happens here? So yeah, so again, they're trying to get these spearmen out. They obviously see the value in them. So I think that what happens is that Entefix leaves these archers as basically a sacrificial lamb to try and get these guys back. They are exhausted, which might explain their loss in speed. And they could just be slow units in general. You can see here that I have 1 stalker remaining from earlier. He hasn't broken. He'll take it right to them. You don't scare me with your archer-like ways. I'll show you what a true archer is. Get in there. No, he's still going. I thought he died in the first hit. Let him get him up. Where's your... where's your chivalry? Hitting a man while he's down. No, there he goes. Alright, well, time to avenge some champions. Look at these guys. They're like 8 foot tall. Let's show these guys how it's done. Get in there! Ah, cutting a swathe. Oh, they broke him. I see how it is. Happy to fight 1 guy with several of you, but you can't stand up against the champions. A real fight. I see how it is. Look at them. Look at them. Yeah. So the champions, really good unit. Although in fairness, they are being backed up by the Harbingers as well. I'm not going to skip back to this top corner. I will very quickly skip back to the top corner. There's nothing happening, okay? He's running around. I think he's trying to waste the ammunition of the archers, who moved over to sort of try and shoot down the side here and loop shots over the top. Because if you see, it's kind of ever so slightly indented, and I think he was shooting through. So he's moved his troops again around another wall, and I think what happens is they just kind of go around both sides. I think the cavalry unit from before was still knocking around. Here they are. So you can see there that the bodyguard is still trying to attack the back lines. There's some marauders here that are trying to shoot at them point blank, but they're having a little bit of trouble at taking them out. So these guys still exist. They're still here. Most of our troops have basically gone into the valley, though, because it's a little bit safer in there. So we've left these guys out here to kind of die, I guess, keep these guys occupied. We're not too... I mean, basically, the best thing we can do about these bodyguard is just get away from any opportunity that they could use them with some good sort of charges. And to do that, we've got ourselves inside the valley, because they're never going to come into this sort of, let's say, bulk of troops. Meanwhile, you can see that we're getting some shield maidens here, Airwind's shield maidens. And they did get their guards back, although they're exhausted. And they got more marines here on the upper lines and additional marines back. So they've got a lot of javies knocking around. They do have the secondary entrance where they've put some additional unit of shields. So it's javelins with javelins with javelins, and then one unit of spearmen, basically. As that other unit appeared. Okay, so yeah, there they go. So there's the assassins unit. The assassins unit jumped out here. They wanted the spearmen to come out so they could throw at them. They did, in the end, make them reveal themselves so that they're throwing into these guys and killing a fair few of them. And Juicy just turned them around to send them back. It looks like that's the last of the ammunition of the assassins troops. They do get a side attack into the spears. The marauders now... Don't know, they're bulking up slightly. I'm not quite sure what they're up to. These guys, yeah, I was going to say, there's victory chances on both sides, with the marauders throwing javelins over the top. I think that'll be the end of these guys with that support there. Yeah, taking out a good couple of each throw and actually getting quite a good angle as well, and they break them. And then the general's unit will probably follow suit. Okay. Over here then, so I decide, you know what, it's time to redeem my broken forces, and I'll send them in. So I've got there my warband, they're going to go up against the Osgiliath. Really what's happening is I want them to throw their javies at my units, so they don't throw them at the useful units we've got. So we've got some bowmen, they're coming forward to throw, to shoot their archers, but really I'm just trying to get in close with some of these guys. Hope that either we push through or they waste all their javelins on my troops, because I don't mind them javelin my troops, because these guys are not the most powerful units on the field anymore in any shape or form. Interestingly enough, though, I thought that actually this is something that me and Jay discussed before, but we never really worked out. I actually thought that maybe the spearmen would be better up the hill to have that sort of hill advantage, but there is an indication that maybe because of the way that the pike's formation is designed, that it might actually work against you, because you can't actually get a solid blow on the unit below you that's poking at your ankles. Regardless, I do send in my my troops there, and they are getting sort of torn to pieces. They're backed up with champions, but I'm trying to keep the champions kind of mixed in, really. They're really just kind of there as the proper killing force. I want the javelins to hit the pikemen. You can see there I'm just trying to push them in, just keep trying to pushing in, but I can't get the mass going. These aren't like having loads of orcs and snagger and able to get in there. So I do end up sending my warband as well. I felt that there was possibly a weak point here, because he reinforced his line with some javelins on that side. I thought maybe I could push through, but I wasn't able to. There's the general finally gone from the elves, and that is the last of their Hail Mary attempt at the fort, I believe. Shield Maidens now just coming to join. They kind of plug in that gap that I thought that I might be able to push through. The last of the javelins now thrown. I'm still just trying to force my men through. Another general goes there. So that's the last of, I think that's Rohan's general's unit, which I can quickly skip over to show you. Whoops, where are they? They were here. So they were fighting, yeah, so they were fighting the last of the Vanguard. And then it looks like there's another general over here. Oh no, there's the bodyguard. Maybe they are still going then, it would seem. Over here again, you can still see the weird cat and mouse going on. We're not going to... Like, he's sending more of his elven troops over there, but There's just too many. It's never going to happen. So, I mean, it's worth a try, but he just doesn't have the elites, the units to make that work. So you can see I'm starting to make a little bit of headway here up the hillside. I just kind of want to break through them. They're not throwing much anymore. You can see that they are throwing from the back here. But at this point, they've got as much risk of killing their own units as mine. And I'm really kind of confident that we're going to break through. And again, I keep pushing this corner here, as I keep thinking this is the more likely of the two sides to get into. And I'm a little bit happy because the Javis, or the axes, I suppose, throwing axes from the Maidens are coming on this side here, which is kind of where they've got more chance of hitting their own troops, although you can see that there's a lot of halberds dead there on the floor, which wasn't great. Sin now is going to start committing some of his elites, and we do still have the tribesmen throwing our own Javis back, and the marauders there backing them up as well with their axes. But a little bit of grind of an attrition. I thought we did send some troops around this way, but I guess not. This is actually blocked up with some spikes, which is doesn't really matter for us at this point. We don't really have any cavalry. So yeah, so here we go. It's a bit choke pointy. You can see them there fighting away. My forces just kind of tiring these guys out and trying to exhaust them, trying to remove, either make their morale less or just make their fighting capability less. As more and more throwing axes come flying over the top, wrecking my troops. I do still have my champions here fighting away. They are starting to feel a little bit demoralised though. They've been here for a while and we're struggling a little bit more on this side. But we do have troops in the wings. We still have those Castamir's Chosen I spoke to you about before. They haven't done anything, but they are keeping an eye on those marshals that are still at the back. But there are also Sin's general's unit with his Naru Aru Sentinel Spearmen there. Okay, so at this point, these guys start pursuing, and I think that was possibly a mistake, because they pursue and then rout, because they take a throw directly in the face from these tribesmen, and they basically, that was too much for them from breaking away from their main forces. And you can see that we're obviously fighting here as best we can. They are continuing their fight out here, but it's slowly becoming to the point where they've got nothing. They're being shot at point-blank range by the missile unit. They're going to have to send in their own, which is close to breaking. On the other side there, you can see that they also are taking some axes in the face on their general's unit, but we still have all these footmen and halberds waiting should anything come of it. You can see here that the spearmen cleaned up the last of those archers, and these archers broke, leaving just the general's unit, which is probably going to get fired at any second now if Dreezy's watching. Oh, are they going to get in? Looks like he's not going to notice. Nope, they're not going to notice. They are going to get in amongst them. So there you go. Where is it? So where's this cavalry force gone then? Here they are. So these guys, they're basically now unable to support, really. We've got to the point now where we've made this our home. we're quite well happy and living in here, and it's just these shield maidens left now going up against the tribesmen. We do have the missile units coming in now, but really we're running amok, although we do have some broken spearmen being chased by those bowmen. And we do have the marauders still throwing some of their own axes in response. There are a couple of units still fighting out here, but they just got broken there, probably from the fear effect of my champions, just because of the mass as well. And it's just this one unit now, who are actually holding up quite well against these tribesmen, but they're going to find themselves getting surrounded soon. And the general's unit there, the cavalry, just not quite sure, I think, where they can support. They are being harried, I think, as well by another unit out here. Oh, my mistake. I thought there was another unit watching over them. It's just a breaking war bands, I think. Unless that's one there. Oh, he's got some missile infantry, but nothing to write home about. I think it's just they don't know how to engage this with the spearmen behind. So you can see here that the surround is now coming in on the Arwen's forces. Castamir is still pretty healthy. And this will start being the beginning of the end for these very brave ladies, showing the men how it's done. But ultimately, They weren't. They're going to go the way of their husbands. Again, the cat and mouse is still going on over here. There's still some forces. I think Sin. Yeah, so Sin's come out to chase them down. He's made them rout because of being charged at, and I think that's the general's force of the elves gone as well now, just from sheer bulk. I think they were able to just refocus their attention over there and force them in. There goes the shield maidens. They've routed. They were still of a reasonable size at 59, but it's just too many, and we have fear units. And that's the end of the battle there. Again, I don't know what the lag was all about. Sorry about that. I do hope that you enjoyed it. It was really a play test for a map, a new map. I say new. Again, the battle is a little bit old now, but you can see here that in terms of the kills, pretty even around the board on my side. Sin here getting slightly less, but of course he had to take the brunt of the main assault at the beginning. But you can see here on the other side, actually Coda doing really well, 1,700. And again, these guys getting around similar amounts, and Leicester coming in, taking on the easy job at the end, clearing up, in my opinion. Let's have a quick glance at Sin's kills. Where did the most come from? So it's crossbows. There you go. So crossbows used effectively can be devastating. But obviously the angle is a bit difficult. A lot of his forces didn't really get a chance to get stuck in. His sentinels didn't even get to fight. They didn't lose anyone. They didn't kill anyone. And same with one of his pike units as well, actually. They must have been back in defending the building. But there you go. I hope you enjoyed this. I've been me, you've been you, and this has been Third Aged Reforged.